Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So, today, again, we have a lot of articles to discuss, and all are very interesting in their nature. Firstly, offset dilution in defense, a flawed policy turn. So, this is from the Hindu, and it talks about the very recent step that has been taken by the government after the Comptroller and Auditor General of India presented its report to the Parliament, and it has actually diluted the offset rules. Now, what is the offset clause for that matter? And specifically, if we talk about in the defense procurement, we'll be discussing in this article. Secondly, a reform that cannot wait. Now, as and when we have been largely discussing about the police reforms and the requirement that we need to reform the police system in India. And this article also gives very nice steps in order to reform the police. And after the Hathras rape case, of course, we all know about it. So we'll be discussing that too. Thirdly, what's in India US defense deals. This is from the Indian Express, and as we know that very recently the 2+2 deal or the 2+2 meet is going to take place between India and the United States, and there will be discussion about a very important deal that might be a successful thing in this meeting. So we'll be discussing about that. And fourthly, Thailand anti-government protests, the issues and what's the difference this time. So though it is not directly related to India, but as we know that Thailand is a very close, it's a very close area, it's a very close country to India. And that is why any kind of turmoil or any kind of changes going on in that place would definitely impact, at least in the long run, to India as well. And it's important for us to know about that. And fifthly, we have the news and flash column, wherein we will be discussing the small and crisp news points that are more important for a prelims exam. Before that, if you're also preparing for the Judicial Services exam, you can have a look at the course from LawSikho, that is the Judiciary Test Prep course. So the link is there in the description box. You can have a look at the landing page, and from there itself, you can download free study material for your own preparation. We're also excelling into various other courses like for SEBI, CLAT, for All India Bar Exam, etc. You can have a look at them too. With this, let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, BECA, recently seen in news, is an agreement between, firstly, India and Japan, second, India and Australia, third, Australia and USA, or fourth, India and USA. So you can write down the correct answer in the comment section as well. This is the descriptive question for the day. It is the need of the hour to bring in police reforms for effective administration. Discuss what steps are required in this area. The answer to this must be written within a word limit of 250 to maximum 300 words. And answer writing is a very important exercise when it comes to competitive exams like the Judicial Services one. So please focus enough on that. With this, let's start the discussion with the first article for the day, which talks about the offset dilution in defense procurement. Recently, as per the CAG's, that is the Comptroller and Auditor General's report, which was recently tabled in Parliament, the government has diluted. Now, by diluted, we means that it has not really removed completely this offset policy or this offset clause, but it has given less effect to it now. So please don't be confused with this term diluted. So it means it still is there, but the impact of it is not that much as it was just before this step was taken. So it has actually diluted the offset policy in defense procurement, and this actually is a setback to Atmanirbhar Bharat. The next thing that we need to do here is to understand as to what actually do we mean by the offset policy, and after we are done with that, we will understand as to what will it really have any impact on Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative or not. So firstly, let's understand that what is an offset policy. As it is written here, in the simplistic terms, the offset is an obligation by an international player to boost India's domestic defense industry if India is buying defense equipment from it. A very good example of it can be taken that recently when we have procured the aircrafts, the fighter aircrafts from Dassault, which is which is a French company, and we have bought in these aircrafts. So that actually is one of these examples. So Rafale aircrafts are one example of it. So once when India had this deal done with this French company Dassault to bring in the Rafale aircrafts, there was an actual offset clause signed between Indian side and the French side. So according to that offset clause, it is the obligation on the other party. And now, in this case, for example, the other party is the French company Dassault, that it would make endeavors or invest in India for advancing Indian interest in the field of defense. Now, be it in the terms of some concessions in economic transaction, be it in the terms of developing the research and development, or in the terms of sharing the technology for development of such aircrafts or anything that you are dealing with. So basically, this not only ensures that you are procuring the defense equipments from the other country, but also it gives your own country, and in this example our own country India, it gives us a chance to learn about these new technologies from the developers of the technology, and thus an inflow of technology and research and development takes place very efficiently. Since the defense contracts are costly, the government wants a part of that money either to benefit the Indian industry or to allow the country to gain in terms of technology. So basically what used to happen was, this is in the case of various transactions that we do with Russia as well, that wherein, for example, just let's take an example, that there was a transaction that was done for in totality of value of rupees 100, for example, though it is in billions of dollars, but just for our understanding. So for this 100 rupees transaction, India would be paying, for example, 100 rupees to a French company, Dassault, for bringing in one Rafale aircraft. Now, it would be desired that out of this, some percentage, as in a part of this 100 rupees, which is paid by India, this French company invests a part of this money back in India or Indian companies. So, for example, it is approximately taken as 30%. Earlier, it was like till this, before this dilution, it was considered to be 30%. So, here in this case, if India is investing 100 rupees or paying as 100 rupees for the bringing in one Rafale aircraft from France, then French company would be obligated to invest 30 rupees out of this 100 rupees back in India for the development of technology, research and development, for the technology inflow, or any other stuff, or any other thing that might be agreed upon. This was the complete idea of having an offset clause. So now let's understand that what is the offset clause in defense. So now, as we know that what actually it means generally, and mostly it is done in the defense procurements, because defense procurement simply means to bring in something. So if you're like bringing Rafale aircraft from France, you're basically procuring that aircraft from France. So this is the only meaning of procurement over here. So in defense procurement, what happens is that defense stuff, goods and technologies are very expensive. And that is why, as it is written, that since it is very expensive, the government or the buying party desires that if we are paying this much, obviously we are getting that particular equipment or defense technology, but some other benefits should also be brought in. And thus offset in the defense procurement is very important. Now here, it actually makes us exercise our buying power to the best of its optimal level, and it secures the best deal, acquire technology, and build the research and development capabilities. And then if we see that this offset clause has had given a lot of benefits, specifically if we talk about the aerospace industry in India, as the exports rose by 577% in 2007 from India, because obviously we were able to develop our own research and development capabilities, and so we were able to furnish the demands of other nations in aerospace industry. Then by 2012, exports increased to $6.7 billion from just $62.5 million in 2005. So just like in a span of 7 years, it had multiplied to fold some levels. So this is how the offset clause was actually benefiting the defense, and specifically if we talk about the aerospace industry. But let's see that actually what has been the journey of the offset clause. It was basically introduced in 2005, and then 2007 to 18, government signed 46 offset contracts with different countries. But the reason why this offset clause has been diluted is that the report that was submitted by the CAG very recently in the parliament, it was quoted that of this entire amount that had to be brought in by means of offset clause, only 8% of it has been realized, as in only 8% has been brought in the real sense. And the technology transfer agreements were also not implemented. So it was like yielding no such benefits to the government as such. And thus maybe the government has taken this decision to dilute the offset clause. And in 2019, Defense Ministry signed 52 offset contracts worth $12 billion. But unfortunately, the real value has not been reaped yet, and that is why we were in only an illusion that we are developing research and development in our own country or bringing in the technological inflow, but that on the real ground was not happening. Then in 2020, finally, the government has diluted the policy further, and it says that it is not applicable to bilateral deals and single sellers. And on the contrary, if we talk about the defense procurements are mostly done through bilateral deals or single sellers, and that is why defense area is expected to be in a way affected the most by dilution of this offset clause. And also it has been quoted that the scheme wherein the very idea of developing our own potential through Atmanirbhar Bharat will be hugely hampered by this, because obviously if we want to become Atmanirbhar in the field of defense as well, as we know that very recently the government has also tried to encourage the private parties or private investors to come into the defense procurement, but not unless we have the right research and development capacities and also the right technological know-how, we would never be able to develop our own aircrafts or missiles or whatever we are trying to do, though we are doing, but as they might not be that competent as we really want them to be. And that is why research and technological inflow through the offset clause was really important in the defense procurement. But let's see what the future has for us. Let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about the police reform. As we know that in the Hathras case, there was huge manhandling of opposition leaders and media by the police, and it has raised the need for the police reforms for the specific concerns such as lack of sensitization of police personnel, absence of accountability, and politicization of the police. So these are some problems which nowadays have become so rampant, if we talk about the police system, that it becomes really difficult for any civilian or a common person to basically trust the police officials. This is something really detrimental if we want to maintain law and order in the society. Now, here are some very good steps that have been prompted by the author in this article, that how should we be actually reaching the reform that we are looking forward to. Firstly, sensitization and training. By sensitization, we simply mean that we should try to make the police officials, now from ranking to the lowest of the ranks to the highest of the ranks, we should try to make them more sensitive towards the problems of the people. Many a times, you and I all have witnessed seeing that the police officials many a times, specifically those who are more into the dealings with people to people interaction, or the police to people interaction, they tend to use abusive language or very harsh words. Many times they also try to manhandle the people without even any charges, pressing any charges against them, but still they abuse them. This is something which shows that they are not really sensitive towards the feelings or towards the aspirations or the lookout of the other person. And this actually makes us feel very distanced from our police officials. Many times you might have seen that people, instead of feeling secure that the police is there, they feel very intimidated that the police officials are around them, because they know that they might not behave very nicely with them. This is the very problem, and it should be taken care of, and we should sensitize about their role in the society. We should bring a change in the attitudinal aspect. Then we should train for promptness of action and decency of behavior as well, as facts say that less than 7% get in service training, and others are just they get selected through the constable training and to constable exams, and they're just directly brought into the force without any proper training to deal with the public at large. Next, learn from Police Ombudsman of Northern Ireland, Danish Independent Police Complaints Authority, and Independent Police Conduct Authority in New Zealand. Now, these are some very bombastic examples if we want to see that in all these countries, if we talk about the Northern Ireland area, and then if we talk about New Zealand, or even if we talk about the Denmark, so they all have proper, specific, or we say they have proper dedicated offices or bodies that specifically deal with the complaints that come against the behavior of the police officials, and proper inspection is done in this regard. But in India, sadly, if at all we want to go and complain about a particular police officer of his misbehavior with the public, other police officers who are there in the police station would tend to harass you even more. So this fear actually lingers all around the people, and that is why we need to have a specific dedicated authority to look into such complaints. Next, accountability. We should improve the police legitimacy and also increase public confidence in the police officers, because obviously then only it will be like that people would really want to report the cases irrespective of the fact, or not thinking about that how will they be treated, because they will be assured and be confident in the police and its behavior. Next, structural changes. Report by Common Cause 2019 says that police force is only at 77% of sanctioned strength, which means that the people, the police population ratio, as in how many police officers have to deal with how many people or the citizens, is actually very less in our country, and we only have 185 against the UN recommended ratio of 222. And that is why more and more employment should be raised, or more and more vacancies should be filled quickly in the police force as well. Also, it says that 1 in every 5 posts in the Indian police service, that is the IPS, also remains vacant, and 5.28 lakh vacancies in the low and middle post are still existent. So many, obviously, if there will be less police officers to deal with a lot of problems, then they will be very stressed and stretched as well, due to which it is very natural to come out that they might not be able to behave properly because of their stress and the pressure that they have to maintain the law and order. That is why the pressure upon these police officers should be decreased, and that is why more employees or more police officers should be inducted to the force. Now let's see that what more can be done. We should consider the recommendations coming from various committees. Now, if we talk about the police reforms, we have very efficient committees and commissions that came over in this direction. Like we have the Dharmavira Commission, which was there, which actually recommended to appoint top police leadership by apolitical leadership and impartial body, so that they do not always have this fear of being transferred, or of being suspended and so on and so forth, if you do not listen to the political pressures or the political dictates. And that is why if they are appointed by apolitical bodies and autonomous or impartial bodies, they will be able to work also in a very impartial manner. And then we should implement the Supreme Court directives of 2006 by Justice Sabharwal. So they're also very important. And other than that, there are also various committees, like we have the committee name called as the Gore Committee, Padmana Bhaiya Committee, Soli Sorabji Committee. So these are all the committee recommendations that were brought every now and then for the police reforms, but not have been very nicely implemented till date. So we should take care of them as well. Now with this, let's discuss the next article for the day, which talks about the third 2+2 ministerial meet. So we should know that it is scheduled for October 26 and 27, 2020 in New Delhi. And one of the items on the agenda will be Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement, BECA, which will be there between India and the United States. Now let's understand that what do we mean by BECA. Basically, it pertains to geospatial intelligence, sharing information on the maps and satellite images for defense. So just like we know, like for Uber or Ola, we need a good GPS system to locate the destination so that we can reach very easily over there. So in the field of defense as well, this geospatial intelligence is very important. And now India will be, if this becomes a successful, which hopefully it would, it becomes a success, then India would be able to have access of US's very advanced geospatial intelligence system, and it would really help India in any cases of exigencies or even knowing the locations of its adversaries. Now let's understand, the only thing that we need to understand in this article is that what do we actually mean by BECA, which is this one, the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement. And then we have two similar agreements that already are functional. One is known as LEMOA and other is COMCASA. So by LEMOA we mean Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. So this is actually very useful for Navy to Navy cooperation, wherein it was signed between India and US in August 2016. So what are the benefits of LEMOA? It allows military of both countries to replenish from others' bases and access supplies, spare parts and services from others' land, facilitates air bases and ports, etc. So with this simply we mean that if at all, for example, any kind of US Navy ship is passing through any area close to Indian territory, and if it needs refueling, it needs more fuel to reach its own coast, or it needs some kind of repair done, or any kind of logistics demands are there, so they can be met by India. And similar is the case if Indian naval ship is passing through any region in Pacific or Indo-Pacific region, then the American bases of Navy can help it. So in a way, it will be something like that they have a middle area wherein they can look for some services which obviously is not practical to go back to your own base and get them done. So this is also a very good advancement in Navy to Navy cooperation. And the next one is COMCASA, which is the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, and this was also signed in between India and US in September 2018. It allows US to provide India with its encrypted communications equipment or systems. So basically, it's just like a WhatsApp or a messenger for the armies or for the intelligence units of both the countries, and they can have a secure network for communicating with each other, even in the times of peace, also in the times of war. And it helps the Indian and US military aircrafts and ships to communicate securely in peace and war. So these are the basic advancements, and if once we have BECA in hand as well, then it will definitely give a huge impact to the US India trust, as well as the relationship growing in the terms of security as well. Now let's discuss the fourth article for the day, which talks about anti-government protests in Thailand. So as we know that for the past few months, Thailand has been witnessing pro-democracy demonstrations. They are demanding that we do not want monarchy, and thus we need it to be reformed. And due to the resignation of PM, and they also want resignation of their Prime Minister Prayut Chan Oka. So let's understand in very brief that what has been the whole story of political system in Thailand. So in 1932, it converted from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy, but now even the people do not want it to be a constitutional monarchy, and they want complete democracy to be established. And since 1947, most part is being ruled by military. In 2006, their populist leader Thaksin Shinawatra, who was in exile, was ousted as prime minister by the military. And in 2014, Prime Minister Chan Oka he came to power after a coup from his sister. And then finally in 2016, the current ruler, who is called as Vajiralongkorn, became the king, and he was actually also endorsed by the now the current prime minister, and allegedly medaled 2019 elections. Basically, people are now in Thailand, they want that complete democracy should be established in Thailand, and we do not even want there to be constitutional monarchy, but just democracy. So they are actually demanding that after the disqualification of the opposition politician, who is known as the Thanathorn Juang Gruang Gruang Kit. So you don't really need to remember this name, just the basic issue you need to know. So he has been disqualified as the opposition politician and also as the member of parliament, and there has been a ban on his party. And that is why people are not really liking this entire thing, and they're demanding for three main demands. Firstly, they want the parliament to be dissolved. Next, they want this prime minister who is currently in power to resign, and they want changes to the constitution and put an end to the harassment of the critics, just like the opposition politician was, but now he has been also put down, as in he has also been disqualified now. Their other demands are expanding LGBT and women's rights, then reforms in education and military, and as well as improvements in the economy. So that is why the people, even in the times of pandemic of COVID-19, are still on the streets protesting against the constitutional monarchy and ousting out for, or bringing in the democracy in Thailand. With this, let's discuss the news in flash for the day. Kaleshwaram eco clearance violates law, National Green Tribunal. Now, just I guess yesterday or the day before yesterday, we discussed about the NGT and the very important role that it plays. So the NGT held that ex post facto environment clearance to Kaleshwaram lift irrigation project after completion of substantial work by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is in violation of law, and that is why it is not allowing it to carry on its further activities, and a complete ban, for now at least, has been put on Kaleshwaram project. Second, Defence Procurement Manual 2020. As per the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, it will facilitate indigenous defence industry by simplifying the processes and ensure their participation in design and development activities and faster execution of R&D projects, that are research and development projects. Now, this again is a step that will enhance our capability in becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat. But then again, as we discussed, even the offset clause is really important in this regard, and we hope that the government strengthens the offset clause in the coming future. With this, we are done for the day. We hope it was a good and informative session for you all. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.